Hey guys, just giving it a second here to give people who can receive the notification that I'm on live a chance to jump on here with me. So if you're watching the replay, now would be a good time to go ahead and maybe skip forward a minute or two. Oh. So I got in yesterday from Jersey. I was scheduled to fly back on Sunday evening, but that is the exact time that the hurricane was impacting our area. And so my first available transfer flight wasn't until Thursday. So I was basically in Jersey for an additional Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 4 days. And so it was good. And it was a blessing, I'll tell you. You know, the way the Lord set it up was definitely a blessing for me, because we had no power at my home for a few days. And in Florida, it gets pretty warm. We actually just had power turned on, I believe, Wednesday. We had some phenomenal friends that went over to the home and cranked up my generator after they got done using it when their power turned back on. And cranked up my freezers to keep my frozen foods cold. So we saved a lot of food. There was millions of people that had lost power in Florida. I went around town today running a bunch of errands, and there was trees down in places that I was very surprised. Very, very surprised how many trees have fallen over in our area, because we really were spared tremendously. We were spared tremendously. And during our service in Jersey, we began to just really pray against Hurricane Irma. And it was absolutely phenomenal, because when we started praying, Irma was a Category 5. And we just began to rebuke that storm. And by the time the service was over, a few hours later, the hurricane was down to a 3. It had dropped 2 categories after we prayed before we ended our service on Saturday. So it was quite phenomenal. We were just so thankful that the hurricane dropped in speed. And then, even though it was projected to come straight for us, it was pretty hot in Morristown too. Yeah. So even though the hurricane was projected to come straight for us in Sarasota here, it did not. It went around us. We did get a lot of high velocity winds here. As I mentioned, there's a lot of things that took place, trees down and so on and so forth. My fence door blew open, but we sustained 0 damage. In fact, it was quite remarkably miraculous, because if you go up and down my road, all of my surrounding neighbors have piles and piles and piles of tree debris stacked up like 3 feet high all down their front lawn at the roadside. And I raked up my yard today and had like 3 trash can fulls. So, I mean, just, I don't know, man, it's just really miraculous. My friend Mark, who lives in a trailer park in this town, he went around and anointed all of his friends' properties that he knew in the trailer park, just to, you know, praying protection over them. And his neighbor right next door to him, the carport collapsed on top of his car, and none of the mobile homes that he had anointed got harmed. Just, I'm telling you, man, like, it's absolutely amazing how faithful God is. You know, there's a lot of people that got hurt during this hurricane. I mean, homes were lost and different things. So I think it's definitely, you know, our responsibility to lift them up in prayer and to serve them in areas where we can. You know, no doubt about it. But at the same time, I can't help but rejoice in, you know, the places that were spared. This hurricane, even though it was, you know, destructive, it, you know, potentially could have caused way more than it did. So we're very thankful for everyone's prayers who joined with us. Now let me get into the Jersey recap. So before I go there, I wanted to tell you guys, when I left my home, you know, we had boarded up all the windows before I went to Jersey, and you know, I was putting my filing cabinets up on top of my dining room table, because in case it flooded, because the floods are the worst part of a hurricane, and you know, with storm surges and different things. But when I was putting the filing cabinets up on top of my dining room table, I found a stack of papers that had fallen behind my filing cabinets, and I looked, and it was my homeowner's insurance policy, and I thought, that's peculiar. Right as I'm about to depart, with a hurricane coming right our way, I find my insurance homeowner's papers. I'm like, maybe I might need those, you know? And I picked them up and I started looking through them, and I realized that we never elected to take flood insurance out on the home. Why? I have no idea. But it was really a trying time, because like I know that I can't call the insurance company and say, hey, can you add flood insurance, even though, you know, this storm is like a day or two away, you know, and it's like expected to hit us dead on. And so anyway, it was just you know, I'm really thankful to not have had to endure that loss. So I'm very thankful to the Lord for sure. But let me also tap into the New Jersey recap. I'm editing some videos right now. We've got some, I've got 3 right now, video testimonies that I'm going to be sharing from those who were at the Jersey event and received some deliverance. One of the biggest takeaways that blessed me the most from the Jersey event was, it was probably the single most powerful deliverance service that I've done yet. And I've done a lot of, you know, powerful deliverance services, but the percentage of people that had demons exposed within them was very high. We had about 55 in attendance, and you know, at least half of those people went through deliverance, if not more, at various times. And yeah, thanks, Ronald. He definitely looked after mine. But you know what? You know, even at the Jersey event on Saturday, when we were doing worship, you know, it was like the hurricane was right on top of us practically, and I knew that I had no coverage for, you know, the most probable destruction that this thing was inevitably, you know, going to cause to our home if it followed its projected path. And at the time, it was as if there was no way of escaping it. It was crazy. And in the middle of worship, tears just began to come down my face as even though I was torn of the concern of realizing that I might be without a home and my investment, right, from that, like everything we've sowed into it, you know, potentially because the insurance wasn't available, wouldn't have been covered, would have been lost. And so, you know, it was just like, it was one of the greatest places of surrender that I've had in a while. And I was just so thankful. And I basically started out Saturday's service saying I've never felt so good, knowing that I was potentially at risk of losing everything. And it was really a great place for me, even though I was, obviously still concerned, but just giving it up to the Lord and telling Him, Lord, even if this is the case at the end of the day, I still have You and my family. And so it just, honestly, it was just such a sweet place of surrender that I experienced. And so I was just really thankful for it. And I'm glad I had that opportunity. And I'm going to continue carrying that out in my heart from this point forward, that level of surrender, and just taking me to that deeper place, So anyway, the biggest takeaway from the Jersey event was the fact that, like, so many people were blown away at what I saw that led me into this ministry. Somebody just called me. In fact, it was a friend of the gentleman who made the largest donation to the RV. And he just called me and he says, I got a buddy with me and he's got a question for you. And he says, how did you get involved in the deliverance ministry? How does one know that maybe they're called to that or whatever? And I just told him, I said, the Lord, had to convince me, number one, that Jesus' atonement stood for way more than what modern day church understands it to be. And I think that the Lord's changing that at this time. I said, but once I began to believe that Jesus was the answer for everybody's issue, these demons just began to manifest everywhere when I began to pray for people. And so when I realized how often demons were associated with everybody's, seemingly common, right, life issues, that these things that are medically, excused away, even these things that the church carnally excuses, right? Like a lot of the church even just, sends people to the people of the world to get help when we're the ones that are supposed to be having the answer. Anyway, when I saw that demons were responsible for so many of these life's issues, and the way that the Lord was exposing these things everywhere when I was praying for people, that's what really catapulted me into the ministry of deliverance, when I began to just want to share with people how frequent these creepy critters are, in people's lives. And so, like, that was my biggest takeaway from the Jersey event. And that's what the feedback that I got from several people was that, number one, how prevalent the enemy is responsible for so many things that we call common, and that we call normal, and that we call human or whatever. And then the other takeaway that I received back from the people, the most common response was, I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to look at this light through my visor. So like my head's all cocked, but anyway, the sun's like right on me, as you can see in the video. But the other takeaway was that people got to see the importance of persistence firsthand on the live stream. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't really ever live streamed services before, because there's so much that you can see in person that you can't see on video. And even Jason, the gentleman who was my initial connection in Jersey that got me to that event, that the whole reason that I even went to Jersey, he was the one that contacted me, that got the ball rolling. And even Jason said, he's like, John, he's like, seeing you in person minister, it's like totally different than seeing you on video. He's like, while I appreciate your videos, he's like, seeing it in person, just even your teachings in person, but the flow and the way how it all came together, like in person, like, he said that it was just so different. It was so different. And it blessed me greatly. And so is what he was saying. And so it's, I don't have any idea, because I'm on this side of the equation. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking out, you know what I mean? I don't see what other people see looking in. And so this was his feedback. And that's why I'm giving it to you, because I feel like if you can make it out to these events, you know, we're going to Cincinnati in a few weeks. I'm going to be setting up the Texas event soon. And it's crazy because the Texas event, ironically, is in the area where a guy lives that I've known for years that has been so hungry. And I just found out today that he lives in this area. He's like going to be a powerhouse in the ministry of deliverance. And he's already done it. And he just wants more. And so it's crazy because his sister's a part of our ministry team over here. And she was actually saying, hey, you should join him to our private ministry group chat. And I'm like, well, he's not a part of our ministry. Well, he might be now in our Texas branch, right? But anyway, the persistence factor, the people's response back from the Jersey event of like, man, like, you know, seeing that what happened when you just continued to do the things that people stop doing because they're disgruntled, they're disappointed, they're discouraged, you know, it's not working, it's not happening, it's not whatever, it's not working. They just think it's not working, you know, and well, it is working. And so I gave a great illustration, you know, in that teaching on Saturday in Jersey, and talking about point A to point B and how dealing with demons, right? It's like you're here and you're trying to get to here, and so like you're commanding and you got things going on, and maybe they're manifesting or whatever, and it doesn't seem like you're getting anywhere or what have you. Maybe they're not manifesting, but it still doesn't seem like you're getting anywhere. And what's happening in the spirit realm is you're here. Like you've already moved this much, but because you haven't seen the takedown, you feel like you're getting nowhere. But you have to understand that that's why we're called to walk by faith and not by sight, because you're here trying to get to here, and you're doing the thing, and so you've moved this far, but because you're not seeing the takedown, you don't realize you're getting anywhere. And sometimes I feel like if we could see what the devil sees, like the destruction of his kingdom, just falling apart, the walls, you know, like are tumbling down all around him, and he's like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't see what they're doing to me. And you don't until you see the takedown. Many times, unless you can see like in the spirit or something, and you can see prophetically that like his walls are being taken down or whatever. But too many people give up right before their miracle. And so I'm excited to share these testimonies, guys. There's actually a common element in the testimonies that I found very favorable, very exciting, that I'm excited to share with you all. A very common thing that happened in all three of the testimonies that blesses me greatly, because well, you'll hear why. But anyway, guys, listen, thanks for watching. I wanted to have the opportunity to share a recap with you. I might get on tonight, I'm not sure yet, but I at least wanted to throw this out there, this interjection, because we've got so much going on. I was delayed in getting back, and amen. Ronald said it was amazing to see how one started manifesting, they all started. What's really awesome about that, Ronald, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because what was really cool is like there was a lot of people praying for others. And so the more that we kept on, right, chiseling away at the enemy's camp, and that was a great example of what I just shared. That was a great confirmation of what I was just saying about point A to point B. So as we kept going, right, the people that were praying and commanding demons to come out of the other people, man, their own demonic fortress inside was getting just pummeled. And so after a while, they're like, oh, you know, I don't feel so good anymore. And they're like, you know, and so now they start manifesting. And it's like, it was just, warfare broke out corporately, and it was so amazing. It was so beautiful. And I love that about this ministry, because it's all about exposure. And that's what I taught on, you know, that at that conference. But anyway, guys, I'm so, you know, honored to be a part of, you know, each and every one of y'all's lives. I'm honored that, you know, that many of you would just glean from my ministry and what God has called me to. It blesses me. And so I love you all, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the flip side, okay? Stay tuned, because Cincinnati's coming up and Texas right around the corner. By the way, if you're in Texas, reach out to me if you want to be contacted, about the details of that service. You can find me by emailing me at jon@johngeorgeministries.com. And now don't forget, JON, and both of those, John@johngeorgeministries.com. So it's JON, right? All right. Bless you guys.